Hello everyone, welcome to Sharing Hope Podcast. I'm your host Melody Smith, and as y'all can see, I am in a new area this morning, or environment, whatever you want to call it. But it's new for y'all, and it's new for me, and we're just using what we have, honestly, this morning. And as y'all can see, I do not have my dad with me this morning. I did not fire him, I promise. How could I ever? But I just decided to go solo, because sometimes you get dependent on a person, I guess you would say. And this ministry that I have for God, I want to do it with everything in me, and I don't want to really learn. I don't want to depend on somebody else for this. I want to do it with my whole heart. He'll be back. I mean, I'm not saying he won't, and other people hopefully, but I want to do this, and I want to do it for the Lord with all my heart, and I just want it to be my everything. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity to be able to come on here and to share hope. It truly is amazing. It's an amazing opportunity that God has given me, and I don't want to take it for granted, but instead I want to do everything that I can with it. I am up close and personal today, so that's kind of funky and weird, but we're just going to go with the flow, and we're just going to talk about the things of God. I was reading on this weekend. What came to my mind was Nehemiah 13. I read this chapter like a year or so or back, and plenty of times throughout then, but I opened it up to it the other day, and I was like, oh man, it's a good chapter. And I mean, I just got to thinking about it, and I figured that would be a good topic for this Sharing Hope. And I want to go into Nehemiah chapter 13 if I haven't said that already. And chapter 13 records that after 12 years in Jerusalem, Nehemiah returned to his post in the Parisian court. However, when he heard of the lingering problems, Nehemiah had requested permission to return back to Jerusalem. And before I continue on with the story, it has a lot of names in a lot of places that I am sure that I'm going to butcher. So if y'all want to follow along with me, y'all can. But this passage reflects Nehemiah's continuing efforts to honor the Lord's house, to emphasize obedience to God's word, and to purify the people that was among him in their homes. And, we can find in that chapter that the people's worship, their work, their homes were still affected by, some sinful habits. And the house of God was defiled by the people's tolerance of their enemy actually living in the temple, and their work was defiled by business practices on the Sabbath day, which we all know was strictly forbidden by the word. And their homes were defiled by continuing the allowance of foreign practices and even influences in their house. They would marry them foreign people that it was against the law of Moses. And upon Nehemiah's return to Jerusalem, Nehemiah discovers that Eliashib, whatever, y'all know what I'm saying, but Eliashib the priest had provided Tobiah, a non-Jew, with a storeroom in the temple courts. Nehemiah reacts swiftly by evicting him and cleansing the rooms and restoring them for their original use, which was for, tithing. And we go on into the story, and Nehemiah even finds that the Levites had returned to their fields to make a living. This problem was connected to the first problem that I just mentioned, because the high priest, had moved that man into the temple, and there was not enough storerooms to bring the tithes, so the priest had not even required them to be brought, and therefore the Levites had to work in the fields to support their families, thus neglecting, their temple duties. So Nehemiah restored the tithing system, ensuring the Levites are provided for so they can focus on their duties, and their religious, I guess you would say, duties. And Nehemiah also finds out about people selling goods and produce on the holy day. It was clearly in the law to keep the Sabbath holy. So he ordered the gates of Jerusalem to be shut before the Sabbath and not opened again until the Sabbath was over and it had ended. And, it was just problem after problem. And finally, the last one that he deals with is the issue of Jews marrying foreign women. a practice against the law of Moses, like I had mentioned earlier. And he confronts the men involved and purifies the priesthood and establishes regulations to prevent such intermarriages, in the future. And the problem of this is that they married people not of God, therefore their children didn't know God. And also they were steering them astray, they were leading them astray, and that was the problem with it. And even in that chapter it says that they didn't even know the own Hebrew language, they couldn't even read the law. And all those sinful things started to be incorporated into their lives because of the allowance of one sin. They continued to progress sin by sin. And that's kind of where I want to get my point at this morning. Nehemiah had seen this, and he had realized that there had to be a stop no matter what he might have to do, because he realized the need and the importance for God in their lives. They can't live without him. They can't survive without him. And these people, they knew the law. They read it, even before he had started cleansing the people and found out about this. The Bible, at the beginning of Nehemiah 13, it says that he sat down and read the law of Moses. And, some people criticize Nehemiah for not being, I guess you could say, more polite. But when God's people are being poisoned by sin, you would want to do everything that you could to stop it. Politeness in that, moment might have not been the best answer. And I see it like this personally. If I saw you drink what I knew to be a deadly poison, you wouldn't want me to be quiet about it. You wouldn't want me to sit in my corner and just allow you to drink it, but you would want me to do anything that I could to stop you, and that's exactly what Nehemiah did. And he didn't worry about what they thought of him, only what God thought of him. And, while reading this story to y'all, you get to thinking, and even while writing this podcast, I got to thinking about all the different directions that I could have went. One commonly used is Nehemiah and how brave he was for standing up against sin. And, that is true. He was really brave for standing up against sin because you had all these people committing it. But the reality of the matter I found is that he wouldn't have to stand up to sin if the sin wasn't committed in the first place. If they had not allowed it to slip in the first place. And yes, you see, as Christians, we sin. As humans, in our fleshly nature, we sin. I'm not saying that we don't, but I am saying that we should not continue to walk in it. And that's exactly what they did. The people in the story did. They continued to walk in it. They had made allowance for one, and then they just continued and continued until when was it going to stop? And it's really a sad thing, because you think about this story, they knew the law. It wasn't something foreign to them. It wasn't something that they haven't heard before. They knew it personally. But like I said, when you make allowance for one sin and you don't put an end to it, you continue to make allowance for other sins. And the reality of the matter, sin is sin, and there's no way that you can word it to make it good. And Psalms 1:1 says, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly." And we can go to Proverbs 4:14, and it says, "Do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of evil." My point here this morning is that these people knew the law. They knew what not to do, but by making an excuse for one sin, they continued to make it for others. And I guess this is such a, I really want to share this word, and it really came to me because I think I grew up in this religion. I grew up being apostolic. It was around me my whole life. It still is. And I know the word. I know what I was taught, and I know what I grew up in, and I read the word constantly, but I never want to read it and not apply it to my life. I never want to read it, what to do, and then go off and do something else. I don't want to become, I don't want to ignore it, but instead I want it to fulfill my life in every way. And, they didn't listen to the law. And I never want that to be in my life. We as Christians need to be careful not to do the same that they did. It's easy to make excuse after excuse, especially in the world we live in. It's easy to please the flesh, but greater is he that is within me than he that is in the world. That just came to mind. That's what my dad would say if he was here with me this morning. Because greater is he. We can make an excuse after excuse for sin, but sin is sin at the end of the day. And like I said, greater is he that is within me than he that is in the world. And I know this one is kind of short this morning, and I'm trying, and it's also something that we pretty much know. It's well known, but let's not fall into the same trap that these people did, or even the same pattern, I might can say that they did, because like I said, it was one sin after another. And if we do not fall, let me not say that. If we do fall, because we are flesh and we are human, let's get back up and turn away from it, not continuing in it. And that's so important, because at the end of the day, we are flesh. I know that I'm going to fail. I know that I can never measure up, but it's not something I want to be okay with. It's not something that I just want to turn an eye to or turn an ear to, but I want to recognize it, and I want to get it out of my life, because living this life for Jesus is truly the greatest gift that I have ever been given, the greatest life. And sometimes you look back and it's just like, are you looking the present moment, and it's, how in the world did I get here? But it's because of God working and moving, and I never want to take that for granted. And when I say take it for granted, I never want to take the things of God for granted. And what I mean by that, I don't want to stop praying. I don't want to stop getting up in the morning and reading my Bible. I don't want to stop devotions. I don't want to stop, going into my prayer closet at any time of the day. I don't want to stop that, but instead I want to integrate it more and more in my life. Even if that means reading at night now and in the morning. If that means stopping in the middle of my day and opening up my Bible, I want to do that. I don't want to become less, I don't want to subtract from it, but I want to add to it every day, because this is my life. I want to become more like Jesus. And I guess that's why it's so important to me personally to dive into this word constantly, because I don't want to stray from it. I don't want to forget it, and I don't want to ignore it. And I want its law written upon the tablets of my heart, that I may not sin against thee. And as time goes by, as I begin to look back down the road, I want to see me being made in God's image. I want to look back and see how I have been molded and changed by the potter's hand, and we are only going to be molded if we obey his word. If we cling to the old rugged cross, if we cling to his ways, that's how we're going to be changed. That's how we're going to be molded. And that's exactly what I want to do. I never want to forget it. I never want to stray from it, but I want to grow in it in any way that I can. And I know that I've been kind of stuttering around this morning, and I'm getting kind of, red, as my dad would say. But this word means the world to me. And I want to grow in it, and I want him to bless it, because this is my life. And I don't want to stray from it. I don't want to go away from it. And I've been saying it, but I mean it from the bottom of my heart. This is my life. And growing up in the church, you see so many people come and you see them go. But when they see me, I want them to see me come and stay. And I am. That's one thing the devil used to taunt me about so much before I even came in the church. I'm like, how could I ever live this life? Because what if I'm just another hypocrite? What if I come and go? And just become a hypocrite to it all, because these people that come, they know the word, but they just leave. And, as the words of my grandpa, he said, you don't have to be. And that's exactly what I live by. Every time that I wake up in the morning and read my Bible, I can be that Christian that I'm supposed to be. I can be close to God. I don't have to be one of them people that left, but I can be here to stay. And it's such an amazing thing, because I never thought that I'd be able to do that. I never thought that I would have that confidence, I guess you would say, in Jesus, but I have, and it's all because of him, and it's all because of his blood and his power and his mercy and him molding me and shaping me to everything that he wants me to be. And I wouldn't trade anything for it in the world. And I feel like I say that all the time, but it's so true, and I never want to forget it, and I never want to stray from it. So I know it was kind of short, but I pray that y'all get the message, and I pray, that we dive more into God so we don't ignore his law, so that we can actually have it written upon the tablets of our heart, that we may not sin against him. I don't want to sin against him. So I'm going to get up and I'm going to read my Bible. And I was even thinking about it the other day, and I know this is kind of off subject, but when people see me, when people hear me talk, I want them to know that I've been up this morning reading my Bible. That I've been in my prayer closet, that I've been on my knees, that I've been talking to the Master. And that's exactly what I want them to see. I want them to see Jesus in my life more than anything in this world. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity to be able to come on here on Sharing Hope. And I pray that y'all enjoyed it, and I pray that y'all share it. And, this word, it's for me, honestly, just a reminder to never let that be my life. And, it don't have to be, as my papa would say. And hope y'all enjoyed it. I know I have. Make sure to like and share. Thank you so much for joining in on Sharing Hope.